Welcome to cooking cheap, easy, and tasty meals. Today I'm going to make the original Nestle Toll House chocolate chip cookie recipe. You start with 2 1/4 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of salt. And we're going to mix those together. My next step, I have added 2 sticks of butter to this bowl and put it in the microwave to soften it. If you leave it out for 8 hours or so, it'll be softened too. But if you're in a hurry, just stick it in the microwave for 30 seconds and it'll do it. Now, I'm going to cream this butter. Get it kind of initially mixed up. Now I'm going to add 3/4 cups of brown sugar. And as I took it out, I made sure that the brown sugar was packed tightly. And I'm going to add 3/4 cups of granulated sugar. If you don't pack the brown sugar tightly, it'll have gaps in it and you won't get as much sugar. So now I'm going to mix these. I'm also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. What I'm trying to do is get this to a smooth mixture, which basically means that the granulated sugar is, you're not going to feel it to the touch, or it's going to be minimal when you feel it. You may not be able to get it that far, but that's the general idea, is it's creamy. That looks pretty good to me. Now I'm going to add 2 eggs. 1, 2. Now normally people will add them one at a time. I've never seen any reason to do that, but supposedly it takes longer to mix them up. Again, I've never seen that to be true, but you may have a different experience than me. Okay, now we have added that. Now we're going to add the flour in a little bit at a time. It makes a difference because you don't want it to splash flour all over. So we're just going to add a couple of spoons at a time to try and keep it from making a mess. Ah, the oven's ready. If you have a stand mixer, this is really easy to do, but since everybody doesn't have a stand mixer, I thought I'd do it with a regular hand mixer. You probably could do it by hand, but it would be a lot of work, because this is a really stiff batter. The rest of it in, and I'm going to scrape down the sides a little bit while I'm at it. Now, we'll put this right here and get as much of the flour mixed in as possible. All right, well, we've got basically what we're going to get off of there. We're stir in 1 package of Nestle's Toll House semi-sweet morsels. Again, if you have a stand mixer, this might be a lot easier, but if you don't, you can do it by hand. It'll take a little muscle, a little time. Just want to make sure you get the morsels mixed in real well with the dough so they're evenly spread. Now, I'm not going to add nuts to this recipe. They're optional, and I don't particularly want nuts in the chocolate chip cookies, but some people really do like nuts in chocolate chip cookies. If you're interested, you could add pecans, walnuts, whatever kind of nut you add, usually about 1 cup. But as you can tell, this is a pretty thick batter already. I have prepared my cookie sheet with a piece of parchment paper. Notice, you can see these 4 spots. I sprayed a little oil underneath. That'll hold the parchment paper in place. Now, the next step is I'm going to spoon out cookies. About a tablespoon at a time. I'll come back and roll them with my hands in a minute. I'm going to get them out first. Try and get them about the same size, which I got to admit is not my strength, but I will try. Some people seem to have a knack. If you have a cookie scoop or melon scoop or something like that, that will give you the same size every time, that's an easy way to get a consistent cookie. We'll get about 12 on here, and we'll see if I made them too big. But they seem to be about the size I remember. It's been a while since I've done this particular kind of cookie. Now what I'm going to do, I don't think you have to do this, but it just will help make them a little more consistent. I'm going to try and roll them around, make them a little more consistent shape. Of course, I'm finding I did not get them all the same size, but I'm close. Okay, we're going to put these in a preheated 375 degree Fahrenheit oven for between 9 and 12 minutes or until they're golden brown. As you probably know, every oven is a little different, so keep an eye on your first batch so you can get a feel for how hot your oven really is. I prepared another couple of trays that look like this. I didn't roll the cookies so we can see what the results are. The recipe is the recipe right on the back of the Toll House chocolate. It is exactly the recipe I'm using, so it's easy to find. Okay, I took these out. It's been about 15 minutes, but I think that's because it's cool in the house and the oven, I opened it too many times when I was turning them around and everything, so I think it took a little longer. I'd say they're ready. I'm going to let them sit for a minute, and then once they have sat on here for about 5 minutes, I'm going to move them over to the cooling rack on the paper, and then eventually I'll take them off of the cooling rack. Now I've prepared them on smaller trays to see if that'll make a difference. I'm also going to move the tray in my oven up a notch to see if that'll help. Now I am going to try and move these over on the paper to the cooling rack. So we'll see how that goes. Came out fine. We'll let them sit there for a little while and then I'll break out the cookies. They are starting to crisp up already, which is kind of where they're supposed to be. Obviously, I made them a little too big or set them a little too close, one of the two. We'll see. But they'll still taste good. Okay, let's do the next step. We're going to pull these cookies off one at a time. See how we do. Still are a little, see they're a little soft. The ones on the outside edge are going to obviously be a little better than the ones in the middle as far as taking them apart. But they're coming apart fine. Now as they sit, they're going to become much more crispy. They're going to become crunchier. So that's our first batch of cookies. I must admit I'm not as concerned about how things look as how they taste. And these are going to taste great. And some of them are going to look good. That is as good a looking a chocolate chip cookie as you're going to find. Our first batch is done. Okay, this batch, I did a smaller batch of cookies and it obviously did a lot better. So I left it closed for the whole 11 minutes and they came out what I think is almost perfect. So obviously, if you're going to do a larger batch, be sure you leave the oven closed. Don't worry about turning around. And even if your oven is uneven, it still seems to be better for the overall cookie. And I gave them a little bit more room and they have a better shape and they haven't run together. Now, if you have a melon scoop and a cookie mat. You can just scoop these out like this. Get a consistent size. It makes it a lot easier to get a consistent size cookie, and you don't end up wasting the parchment paper. But parchment paper is fairly inexpensive. That's another way of doing it, and if you're worried about the consistency of cookies, that definitely works better. Again, I like how they taste more than how they look. So I'll cook those and they'll look beautiful. Okay, here are these cookies. To be honest, I'm always a little bit in a hurry to get these off of here, which I shouldn't be. The next batch will be ready in about 5 or 6 minutes. So we will have gotten a little more than 2 dozen. We will have gotten almost 30 cookies. And I guess if we'd have made them smaller, we'd have easily gotten 30 to 36 cookies. So that's quite a large number from that recipe. You can also stick that in the freezer, pull it out now and again, and just make a few cookies at a time. So this is a recipe for somebody who wants to make a few cookies for their kids every now and then. This is a great recipe. It's easy to break it into pieces and cook 3 or 4 cookies at a time. Also, I suspect you could freeze the cookies. Okay, here is our last batch of cookies. These came out very nicely. Cooking on a silicone mat is fairly easy. Using the scoop to get the cookies the right size, they're pretty consistent. That one's not because I used the remaining dough on it. But if you want to get a consistent product, probably, unless you're much more comfortable using the spoon method, then using this melon scoop is a really good idea. There's our final batch of cookies. I hope you enjoyed it. They're easy to make and they're really tasty. And there we have it, a little over 2 dozen Toll House chocolate chip cookies. I hope you enjoy them. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and give us a like. Thank you.